Hello, welcome to Dongamet channel. It's a rainy Saturday late afternoon, and I'm here with my new hawkbill project. I thought I might make a little update on that. So I got this far, which is kind of where I wanted to get, but I didn't want that massive gap there. That was a mistake. I miscalculated when I made my initial cuts, and this was the part that I took out. So I cut in, Anyway, I'm figuring it out. And the cool thing about this is that there is still enough material there for me to achieve what I want. I can either wedge something in there, maybe some JB Weld, or just fill the void with epoxy. Probably just go that way. I was thinking I could cut a piece of lilac wood and encrust it and drill in and da 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 da. But it'll probably be fine because I'll be able to use this to make this piece correctly so that it will sit flush, and so we'll have much the same effect. And now then the question is, obviously, what's to stop the whole thing from just busting apart? I already got a little crack here in the antler, and yeah, the answer is twine epoxy. So we'll have this shaped in like that with this little tab there, and then the wrap will go from maybe around here up to there. Twine epoxy. I just want to grab a thing just by way of illustration. My nata, Japanese hatchet. So this is a very heavy duty knife, and it has a surprisingly short tang on it. It's good and wide, and it's double pinned, but this part is the really important part, I think. I mean, the pins are good, but if this were enclosed, instead of cutting this, if this gap were tapped there, then the oak would be probably strong enough, especially if you left it a little thicker. But this ring that is forced on here somehow, I guess they put it all in together and bang it in together. But with twine epoxy, you see, we get the same effect because it will be under tension as I'm wrapping it, and then it will cure with that tension. So it will be clamping. So the tang is about, well, maybe take it out. Oh yeah, check this out, by the way. Oh, it clicked before. I guess it's a one-time click. Anyway, it's in tight, Little gaps there, but gaps, voids with epoxy, it's kind of good. Right, so not a lot of tang. But I guess, considering that this blade is twice as long and the tang is twice as long, that kind of gives me hope, actually. Because it would be a shame to have it and it'll explode. But that is a test, It's also, and I think that it's going to be strong enough. That's what I think. And we're going to find out, because I am going to definitely, give it proper use. So then there will be the question of the pinhole. And so I will state my intention here, which is to put this on my mini lathe and get it to the internal diameter here. And pin this in. I'll try and get it down inside there, so that later this wider hole here, I can tap that in a little bit, make it a little deeper, and this will be held together effectively by this pin. But the reason for the hole is because I had the thought that I could make some buttons, you know, to this diameter of this wider hole here, and then unite the buttons on either side to this with a brass pin. So you'll have the kind of this effect of the stag, because I'll take the cut from up there, with a brass pin in the middle, peened in. And that will be extremely well fixed in that case, if I get it done right, with the epoxy and the pin and all this stuff together. You know? And it's interesting with mixed media to contemplate. I thought this was lilac, but when I cut it, I realized it's just maple, because lilac has the smell. But it has the lilac sapwood is like the same color as this. But I think it'll be fine, because it's going to be inside, clamped inside this micarta, and with the twine epoxy around the outside and so forth. So it's only one relatively small part of the equation. There's also this meeting here, right? That the rotation, as long as this, you know, let's say it were perfectly fitted, which it won't be, but the epoxy will make it so that it is perfectly fitted. That doesn't allow any rotation. So you've got that plus the binding. And it's interesting just to consider that, you know, the relative flexibilities of the different materials, I think. And maybe I'm speculating slightly here, but I would say that micarta is probably a little more flexible than the steel. You know, it's certainly easier to flex it with your fingers. But of course, they are both flexible and probably comparably so, and they kind of go well together. You know, they unite, and then they can flex together as one. Now, the stag is going to be very hard. I think it's much less flexible than the micarta. Probably less flexible, possibly, would it be less flexible than steel? I mean, it must have some flexion in it to be so tough as it is. But, you know, it certainly feels very solid, like a more rock solid, more brittle. But that means that, you know, providing that this cracking and this checking is well attenuated by the wrap, then in here it's, you know, it's just not going to break. You know, I think that the blade would break or something, the tang would break before the stag would break back here. So it's all about this area and getting that like a knot in wood, right? Which, yes, the knots, you know, a 2x4 will tend to snap where the knot is. And this also would possibly then tend to snap where the knot is, depending on what you do with it, but probably the blade will break first. That's my thinking. Thank you for sharing this with me. And have a wonderful weekend. And hope to show a completed item with the next video on this one. Toodle pip.